Hidden Wonders of Wales, exploring off the beaten path. Here are my 5 hidden gems of Wales you should know about. Well, number 1, I have to start with castles. And as I've mentioned a number of times, we do have a lot of castles. In the south, we've got Cardiff Castle and the big Caerphilly Castle. And in the north, we've got the mighty Beaumaris, Carnarvon and Harlech, all built by Edward I in the 13th century. But there are many castles which aren't as well known, but as a result, they're not that busy. They may be ruins, but often they're in some of the beautiful and most dramatic locations in Wales. Some of my favourites are Carreg-Cenin, and recently I've discovered Dryslein Castle. Both of these can be found in Carmarthenshire. Well, number 2, the national parks and countryside. You probably already know about the Brecon Beacons, which is now known by its Welsh name, Banau Brycheiniog, and Snowdonia and Snowdon, the highest mountain in Wales, a Wyddfa. But when you do visit these places, they can often be very busy, and you see the queues on top of the mountains like Pen y Fan or Snowdon itself, and people are queuing for ages to get a photograph from the top. But there's many areas which are quieter, easier to park, and when you get there, the views are equally as beautiful and dramatic. Well, as I live in South Wales, I often go to the Brecon Beacons, but I don't go to the area by Pen y Fan, which is the busiest part of the Brecon Beacons. I go to an area to the west, known as Black Mountain, not to be confused with the Black Mountains to the east of the Brecon Beacons. This is Black Mountain. I've made a few videos about this place. It includes the Top Gear road that goes over the top of it, the old quarries that were there, and I'll link some of those below. But the Black Mountain is a great spot, free parking. You can go for walks all over the western side of the Brecon Beacons. Highly recommended. Another part of Wales which is often overlooked can be found in Pembrokeshire. And when you think of Pembroke, you think of the beautiful beaches. But these are the Preseli Hills, an ancient rugged landscape. And interestingly, the Preseli Hills were the source of the blue stones used in the construction of Stonehenge. They were quarried there and dragged hundreds of miles to Salisbury Plain. Number 3, the coastline. Well, I briefly mentioned the coast when I was talking about Pembrokeshire and Preseli Hills earlier, but Wales as a whole has got over 1,600 miles of coastline. That includes the islands such as Anglesey. And it's pretty diverse. We've got cliffs and coves, as well as sweeping dunes like where I am now. This is just on Kenfig Dunes. There are dunes, they're all under this grassland at the moment, trust me. And we've got the industrial areas like the ports of Cardiff and Swansea as well. Again, you probably would have heard of the well-known beaches like Tenby in Pembrokeshire, which is one of our favourites. Then you've got the Gower coastline, and in the north you've got the Victorian seaside towns of places like Llandudno and Barmouth, where the mountains meet the sea. But there are other places by the coast which are much quieter, and again, even in the height of summer, you can avoid the crowds. Some of the quieter areas are not that hidden. You've got like Manorbier in Pembrokeshire with its castle. Again, that never gets that busy. And even in Swansea, you can go to Brandy Cove, which is on the Gower. Again, very close to Swansea city itself, but never gets that busy. And around here, for example, you've got places along the heritage coast in South Wales, which is, we've got places like Monknash. Again, these areas, even in the height of summer, they're quite quiet. And recently we were in Pembroke. We went to the Bosherston Lily Ponds, and the beach there, Broadhaven South. It was the height of summer, the kids were still off school, and there was plenty of space for everyone. Well, with over 1,600 miles of coastline, you're bound to find a little bay or cove to yourself. Well, what's your favourite bay or beach or bit of countryside you like to visit that's quiet and off the beaten path? Let me know in the comments. But there again, you probably don't want to, because if you put it in the comments, you'll tell everybody else where it is. So next time you go, it'll be full of people. Well, anyway, if you do want to share with me, put it in the comments. I won't tell anybody, honestly. Well, number 4, this hidden gem isn't a place. I'm going to look at Welsh food. I feel British food and Welsh food still gets bad press, usually by people that have never visited the UK or Wales. And it's changed so much over the years. I find Welsh food is fresh, often natural without preservatives, and unlike lots of foreign food and food in North America when you travel, it's not full of salt or artificial flavourings. The quality of food and drink in Wales is very good. But don't worry, you can still get fish and chips. And when you do visit Britain, don't go to the pubs in London to get fish and chips, because that's not proper fish and chips. Go to a seaside town, whether it's in England or Wales. The best fish and chips are by the sea, where you can fight a seagull over a chip. Anyway, back to the food. As well as the fish and chips, you've got traditional Welsh food, including Welsh cakes, things like lava bread, which is edible seaweed. You've got lamb, which is popular, and then you've got things like cawl, which is a lamb stew with vegetables. And if you go to the local markets, even Cardiff and Swansea Market have improved recently. You've got your traditional butchers, fishmongers, local producers, people that make cheeses and things like that. So visit a local market in one of the towns, and you get a lot of weekend markets, farm shops, there's more and more of those. And get onto the drink, one of my favourite topics. We've got a couple of whiskey producers. We've got Penderyn in South Wales and Aberfoils up in North Wales. Both produce a Welsh whiskey. There's actually a gin producer just started in Porthcawl, where I live. And obviously you've got the Welsh beer. And believe it or not, Wales does produce wine. Yes, that's right. As the climate has changed over the years, a number of areas in South Wales are now producing wine. Number 5, the towns and villages in Wales. Well, you've got the bigger towns and cities like Swansea and the capital Cardiff. But there are many towns and villages around Wales which are definitely worth a visit. They're really interesting, and surprisingly, they don't get the number of visitors they deserve. Well, one of our favourite places to visit is the small village of Larne on the South Wales coast. It's got a castle, like many places in Wales, but it's famous because it was the home of Dylan Thomas, the famous Welsh poet and playwright. And I'm surprised, because Dylan Thomas was very famous in America. And even though they do get tourists, I'm surprised how few they get considering how famous he was. And on another literary note, another pretty town to the east of Wales is Hay-on-Wye, famous for the book festival, but you can visit any time of the year. Definitely worth a visit, Hay-on-Wye. And earlier in the year, we were staying up in North Wales in a village called Beddgelert, which is a perfect base to explore the mountains around it. Also, Mel loves the story of Gelert the dog, which is based in the village of Beddgelert. If you don't know it, look it up. The legend of Gelert the dog. Also, up in North Wales, on the on the coast is the famous village of Portmeirion. Again, not really off the beaten path, it is quite touristy, but if you're up there, it's very unique and it's been used as a location in many films and TV shows, and the most famous being, that's right, The Prisoner. Although strictly not off the beaten path, definitely worth a visit when you're up there. And when it comes to seaside towns, like I mentioned, you've got the Tenby, Saundersfoot, the Barry Islands, Llandudno in the north and places like that. But we love some of the small villages, especially on the Mid Wales and West Wales coast, like Solva and Porthgain. Very small, and we love them off-season. Again, even though they're small and they're slightly off the beaten path, they do get tourists and they can get busy on bank holidays. But when you go on the shoulder seasons, they're really peaceful and you get the rugged weather beating against the coast. Definitely look at the coastal regions on the west, heading north up Cardigan Bay. So when you do visit Wales, you really need to rent a car to get out and about and explore some of these more remote places. And if you're not sure about driving, I've done a series of videos about driving in the UK, and I'll link those below. Anyway, as I mentioned, we love to visit some of these places on the shoulder seasons, the autumn and the spring, to avoid the crowds. Even though some never get that busy, it's still the best time of the year, and I would just avoid maybe the school holidays, July and August. And as for the weather, we're in Wales. It can do anything at any time. And remember, the hidden gems aren't just the places. We've got the food and drink too. So even if you visit Wales and can't get out to the more remote places, you're in Cardiff or Swansea, try the local food. Local food and drink, highly recommended. So that was just a taste of Wales, our personal favourite things to do which are slightly off the beaten path. And remember, this is our favourite, our opinion. So all the people that want to rant and rave and talk rubbish and slag off each other's towns, go somewhere else to do that. I'll just delete your comments. If you've got something constructive to say, that'll be the first on the internet. Comment below. And if you haven't visited Wales yet, why not? Anyway, more videos about Wales coming up, and I'll see you in one of those. Bye.